All right, hello everybody and welcome to the latest Service Department News webinar. Today we are looking at the view from the top and we're going to have a deep dive into the luxury end of the Service Department, apart hotel and extended stay market. My name is George Sell, I'm editor of Service Department News and we are an online multimedia B2B platform for the sector. Today's webinar is going to last an hour. We're going to have a lot of information presented today and Ryan from SDR is going to present some interesting slides for us for about the first 10 minutes. Then we're going to have a panel session. If you have any questions for anybody at all, please do submit them using the Q&A or the chat function in Zoom. And a recording of the session will be sent to everybody who's registered via email in the next couple of days. So we have a truly international panel who are in 3 different time zones across the world, and I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves. And first we'll go to MJ in the US. Good afternoon to you, MJ. Good morning.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to those who are attending. I am with a brand called AKA Hotel and Hotel Residences. We started out in the service department space, in multifamily space, and have, I'd say in the past 20 years, expanded into the hotel category. Most recently, in the AKA Hotel and Hotel Residences brand, we have a division of it that is specific to hotels. We call service departments, it's semantics and it's marketing, but we call it hotel residences because we still operate with full hotel services. And why we're participating today is we serve the luxury category of the service residence or service apartment area. I myself have been with this company for 35 years, started when I was 4, that means I'll be 40. And have also worked for one other hotel brand for this. I would say the exciting part of what we do and how we do it different is for years, we've been trying to make it easy to do business with us. Some of the firsts were first to accept a credit card for recurring rents many moons ago. First to be able to book through the GDS for service residences, simply because we were able to accept shorter stays, not just month to month. So
excellent. Well, thanks, MJ. We'll go deeper into that in the conversation. Bill, good evening to you in Phuket, Thailand.
It's almost good night as well. My name is Bill Barnett, and I'm not 4 years old, but I wish I was. But anyway, I'm feeling like that at the moment. Anyway, I'm the managing director of C9 Hotelworks. C9 Hotelworks is a hospitality and real estate consulting firm. I've been at this for about 19 years, and previous to that, I had a career as a corporate hotelier. So from the consulting side, we work Pan-Asia, Australia, New Zealand, all the way up to the Indian Ocean. So we work from Japan all the way across through Maldives, all the way across to Mauritius, Seychelles. So we do a lot of work in the luxury segment, especially in resorts, and especially at ultra luxury level as well, which is $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a night in terms of accommodation. And one of our key strengths is we do a lot of work in branded residences, hotel residences, managed product as well. And this is an exciting space for us. About in the luxury segment, we're seeing about 30% of pipeline projects having branded residences. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
Excellent.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, Bill. And finally, a bit closer to home, Ryan from SDR, welcome to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ryan, and I'm based out of London, in the London office. So I'm a business development manager at STR, and we work with close to 80,000 hotels globally, benchmarking performance. So a few of the bits that I'm going to present later on today with regards to occupancy, ADR, RevPAR across hotels, and particularly as well between service departments too. So yeah, really excited to be here and looking forward to showing you through some of the insights we've got.
Thanks, Ryan. And we hear a lot in the hotel sector about how it's been the luxury and the economy sectors that have flourished, but you're going to show us lots of interesting slides now which show not only how the luxury market is going, but also how service departments fit into that and whether perhaps they can charge a premium for their services with hotels. So I'll hand over to you, Ryan, for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get into our panel discussion after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And given how international it seems that everyone has been here today, I really wanted to start off with giving a kind of a general overview of international demand and current trading first. We'll go through a little bit around what the kind of premium looks like on service departments versus the hotel space, and particularly at the end, how the luxury sector is doing, which particularly in London has an interesting trend. So hopefully you'll stay with me through all of the data, because there's definitely some interesting insights right towards the end there. And particularly across the pandemic, yeah, we've seen that service departments have been able to charge that kind of premium. There's been a few key reasons for that. But if we make it more international, if you could pop to the next slide, firstly, looking at international demand and current trading. So on the next slide, we can see that occupancies across the globe, we actually ended 2022 just 8% shy of 2019 levels, and we ended Jan 2023 just 7% shy from an occupancy perspective from 2019 levels. So it means that we are all but recovered from that side. And that definitely shows true when you pop over to the next slide across the globe. So occupancy across the regions, more so when you look on the left-hand side of your screen, very much recovered, particularly in areas like Central America, North America and the Middle East, particularly areas like Miami, Dubai, had a head start on recovery. But we've seen that as through 2022, Europe has definitely picked back up and really strong. The laggard really still being on the right-hand side, mainland China. But when you bring that a little bit closer to now, with recent news about things opening again, it's certainly a brighter picture. But there's no surprise when you bring it onto rate on the next slide, that compared to 2019 levels, we're in double-digit growth on almost every one of those regions, and very close in mainland China and in Asia. So it's definitely been the jet fuel to recovery across the whole hospitality space. And on the next slide then, have service departments really maintained their premium? Well, we've seen that when you compare service departments and hotels on the next slide, the occupancies somewhere around 80% for service departments compared to around about 77% from the hotel side. There's been a key premium from a rate perspective, and then of course blended together from a RevPAR perspective. But what have been the key reasons for that? Well, on the next slide, you could see that really it's related to geography, largely in those city center, the tier 1 and 2 cities, particularly in the areas like central London, where you can charge that kind of premium. Service departments generally sit, we find, in the kind of upscale and above sector of the market, simply because of that rate. And the reason they can charge that premium is because of the extra space you get if you're a family, and being able to save a bit of money on going out for dinner every night when you're in a hotel versus cooking for yourself in the apartment. And that's definitely been true on the next slide when you look at Europe and service departments in the blue, and for 2022, and then hospitality for 2022 in the blue on the right-hand side, compared to 2019 in the gray. And you can see that for the most part, they've been very resilient from an occupancy perspective across the months, whereas hospitality on the right-hand side has taken definitely much more of a hit. But as you look at occupancy across 21, 22, and into 23, on the next slide, you can see that occupancy has definitely had a bit of a premium, but that has narrowed as we've moved towards the end of 2022 and into 2023 as well. So the service departments being the blue line and the wider hospitality space in the gray, so definitely trending above from that side. So that's from an occupancy perspective, but what about rate? So if you go on to the next slide, you can just see just how big that premium is. So on the left, service departments in 22 in the lighter color, and the darker color being service departments in 2019, you can see just how big that premium was as you move through the months, particularly towards those winter months at the end of the year. And in the wider hospitality space, it was a little bit more tempered, but certainly has actually throughout the summer, perhaps people opting for one versus the other from that side. But then when you go on to the next slide, you can see that actually that ADR premium across 22, as we've moved into 2023, has just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And speaking with revenue managers at hotels in particular, they've basically been able to say, well, I just keep increasing my rates and the demand is there to shorten a lot of that premium. And if we drill down into the UK and view that side by side on the next slide, you can see that actually doing that same exercise of the service departments in the darker color and the lighter color against the market, in the UK, occupancy premium, not as much as what you would see globally, but then again, from the right-hand side and ADR perspective, definitely a big premium, especially in those summer months of July 2022, people still not being sure about whether a staycation in a service department or a hotel is for them. If we move it over to Germany on the next slide, tells actually the opposite story, and it's interesting to see the two versus each other. While there's definitely been an occupancy premium from the service departments in Germany on the left, on the right, actually we've seen that hotel room rates have been well above. So certainly when speaking with our colleagues in the DACH region, that people have been opting more for a service department as opposed to a hotel because rates have just been so high for your typical hotel. And when you move it over now a bit more international to the Middle East on the next slide, bringing it to occupancy, you can see that actually, again, that gap has slightly narrowed in performance in the Middle East, particularly at the beginning of the year. It was at its shortest really at the height of Omicron, but as we've moved out of that, you can see that that premium has certainly started to come back. And when you do a side-by-side again on the next slide for the Middle East in terms of occupancy, January to December, for service departments on the left and hospitality on the right, you can see that actually service departments have still got that resilience in the Middle East too, particularly as people have looked to get to warmer climates and actually pick up a service department while doing so. And service departments have really been flexing their muscle on the next slide. When you look at the Middle East in terms of rates, you can see towards the end of the year in 2022, that in the middle of the three, November and December, just how big that premium really ended up being. And that's, again, because of the luxury nature of a lot of the service departments in the region, certainly demands that. And then on the next slide, it definitely tells that same story. The pricing gap to hotels has been tighter throughout COVID, and that's definitely now expanding as we've moved into 2023. And if we then pop over to the next slide, well, what are the real drivers for that? I hesitate to say that COVID is in the rearview mirror, but still a concern for some people, and where over the course of the last 2 years, we've become acclimatized to getting to a service department. Myself, I didn't stay in a service department at all pre-COVID, but now, even though COVID is in the rearview mirror, actually it's something of choice for me. Really, it's the reason for having a self-catering. You're able to stay in something for yourself. It's self-contained. You don't have to have as much contact with staff and other guests. And then, like I said, I don't have a family myself, but certainly take up that extra space and really lay myself out across the rest of the apartment. So that's looking at it from the service department sides, pardon. But if we add some context into that for the hotels market on the next slide, I really wanted to present a picture across the whole market. And exactly like George said, if you look in terms of the global occupancy and ADR, you can see just how big it's really been a rate-driven growth on the left-hand side from the luxury end, and then an occupancy-driven story on the economy side. We often get asked, are we in a two-tier economy? And it's really hard to disagree with that. You look at a 26% premium in rate for a luxury hotel versus 2019 levels. And that's even more pronounced when you bring it down to a European basis on the next slide. 26% rate on the first one, now 46% across Europe as well. So it really speaks to the types of travelers that are staying in those properties. An extra 10, 20 euros on their room night may not be enough to deter them from staying. But if we look on the economy end, you've got a backpacker across Europe that extra 10, 20 euros is the difference between staying in that hotel or having a few extra beers. So definitely one that takes that. And so if we then actually drill that down further into the UK, on the next slide, you can see that still exists, slightly tempered in the UK, 34% for that premium against 2019 levels. But you can see that actually across the right-hand side on the economy end, occupancy is actually up compared to 2019 levels, 4% so. So certainly between the two, you can see just how much rates have driven that. And I wanted to also pick one more fairly interesting country on the next slide, which was Spain. Had this one to hand, and you can see that actually it's a 41% increase in rate on the luxury end, whereas across the middle, slightly tempered too. And that's definitely rings true when you look at breaking it down by city across Europe. On the next slide, you can see that this is just luxury class ADR across key European markets across 2022 indexed to 2019. And particularly in Spain, you could see 58% in Madrid in particular, whether that plays into the fact of US travelers preferring Madrid over Barcelona in certain instances, definitely plays a part of that. But like I said, in terms of Athens, Rome, all over 50% premium on 2019 levels. Certainly, as you look more towards the right-hand side, that premium comes for very different reasons, likely because of all the events for the war in Eastern Europe will play a part in refugees as well. But if we draw that down, you can see 34% across the year for London. But on the next slide, I wanted to break that down even further. You can see this is just London luxury. And the key part to focus on here is the darker line, and that is year on year. So on the left-hand side, we're comparing January 2022 versus 2021. You can see that actually there is a premium of somewhere around 15 to 20%. We had such an amazing summer, that big jump up there in the middle, and then a little bit more as we had more tourists come in for the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. But what's interesting when you look towards the right-hand side is across Jan and Feb, there we're actually comparing Jan and Feb 23 versus Jan and Feb 22. And actually a lot of that premium has dissipated. Well, when you split that out by class, it's really interesting to see on the next slide that actually there's a suggestion that luxury has kind of hit its peak for rate, that we've seen that actually rates haven't been driving as much of the growth across London, but to continue to add on rates where people have been much more conscious of that. It's interesting to see that across the beginning of this year, that actually it seems to be that perhaps there is a ceiling. And I did the exact same exercise here, didn't include this slide, but particularly in an area like in Birmingham, where we saw that the market, the highest class in that market had a peak. So whether you're in Birmingham or London or Milan or Rome, depending on where you are, the highest class hotel in that market isn't seeing too much more of a rate growth moving forward. And so what does that mean then looking forward? So on the next slide, what does the pipeline and forecast tell us? Well, I picked out then the top service department markets in terms of supply. You can see Sydney right at the top of the list, and actually a lot of service department growth in Australia. London is always at the top, somewhere around the top anyway, just because of the nature of the city. Loads of growth across Shanghai as well, and interestingly in the Balearic Islands. And that's really an overview of service departments and some hotels for context. So thank you very much for taking the time, and here for any questions or feedback. And if you would like a copy of the slides, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to share.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Ryan. So loads and loads of really interesting information there. And Bill, let me pick up with you on one of those last slides there. Several of the markets with the top service department pipelines were in your neck of the woods, a couple in Australia and Shanghai. So tell us a bit about what you're seeing in the pipeline and how much of that is at this luxury end that we're talking about.
I think certainly from the service department space, 2018, 2019, broadly across the region, size matters. That was really, we saw a push with, so much growth in emerging markets, mass tourism, mass travel, that there was really pressure on unit sizing for developers. Land costs was going up, and we saw smaller was better. I think now we've gone the other way, and all of a sudden size is even mattering more. So we're seeing people looking at larger units. We're seeing developers now go back into the market. The past few weeks, we're getting more and more calls. So we're seeing more greenfield and brownfield developments, certainly across the things. And service departments are hot again. They got very, very hot. I think from a luxury standpoint, one thing certainly in Asia, it was a top-down recovery. We saw, these hotels that, luxury hotels came first, and there was that revenge travel. There was multi-generational travel. People came first to luxury. And I guess there's also the viewpoint that when people came back in the market, the people viewed and said, if a 5-star is this, a 4-star, a 3-star, I said, I'll take the 5-star because that's really pressured 4 and 3-star hotels as well downwards. So again, people were looking just to travel again, and rates continue to prosper. So I think it's been interesting for here. And we also have a huge, in the leisure markets, at least for service departments or branded residences, the Russian impact as well. Russian travelers have flocked to the holiday destinations in Asia this year, and we're seeing rates extremely high and longer stays. So it's a pretty healthy market.
Okay, yeah. So the existing inventory, then the luxury end of the market is still performing well to quite a broad range of guest demographic by the sound of it.
Exactly. And one thing about the service department complexes tend to be smaller, so they're able to push rate. So it's not like working at the larger institutional size hotels at the 4-star level, perhaps. You would have a cookie cutter hotel. So they've been able to control and push rate, whereas other people, if the demand wasn't that, they're waiting for more and more demand. But for luxury, they were able to say, we don't have as many units, let's push the rates and be dynamic in our pricing.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Bill. MJ, at AKA, you guys have hotels and you have the hotel residences. You've got quite an unusual mix of luxury leisure and real top-end business kind of media customers and that kind of stuff. Are you seeing them opting for one way or the other in terms of the residences or the hotels, or is the split fairly even?
It's funny, ironically, with Sydney at the top of the list on luxury travel from day one in both our hotel residences and hotel, they are the most, I guess I would use the word adventurous and open-minded travelers. They have, in our New York properties, have flocked back into Manhattan after COVID, and price is not there. No, the luxury traveler, Australia, and of course our Middle East clients post-Ramadan is unbelievable. I could say we make 60% of our revenue sometimes in that chunk of time. In terms of hotel residences, many of the hotel users are seeing that we are a hotel, our origins were hotel residences, and they're booking that instead. So if we have a hotel residence in that same market, they're booking hotel residence. Length of stay and booking window has gotten a little bit longer too. During COVID and just post-COVID, people were so pent up. There was such a pent-up demand that people were booking and arriving same day, next day. I would say that the luxury traveler for us isn't even slightly concerned about rate. They're asking, can I pay more to get more? For example, if they stay 1 to 6 nights, they get daily service and housekeeping. Can I get daily service? I'm staying 11 nights, and in the weekly category, you get a once a week visit included in the rate. Okay, what's the rate if blah, blah, blah. So it's just the opposite. What they're interested in is these curated stays with us, and they want to pay more. We're doing a local campaign right now for folks, and they're just so excited to kind of immerse, especially again, for whatever the reason, Australia is the biggest, most, I guess I would call it a quirky traveler, but open-minded traveler. They can't wait to immerse themselves into the local culture.
And is there a clear demarcation, MJ, between your leisure travelers and your business travelers, or are you seeing the same people in your properties for both? So they might be in a city for work, but they'll bring their families with them and they'll stay on for an extra few weeks. Are the lines
I
blurred?
missed that, and I should have touched on that. Bleisure is number one with us, especially what I call that tweener category that I feel we serve so well. That longer than a hotel stay, shorter than a full-on service residence where you're entering into any kind of monthly contract. You know, that 7 to 29 day length of stay for us, and we have pricing accordingly. We talked about dynamic pricing. We have a daily rate, a weekly rate, and monthly rate, and then a long stay lodging rate if somebody's interested in turnkey. I can tell you that we're still out there participating in Lanyon RFPs and calling on all of our corporate business travel. And that's a very specific focus. But now that we have the hotel component, those hotels that have meetings will also do group business. So it's just everybody, it's all feeding each other. Bottom line, length of stay has increased for the business traveler because they absolutely are tagging on a weekend or a few days. And they'll do multi-city. You know, we happen to be strong in the Northeast corridor. They'll do multi-city, travel.
Yeah.
As well within the brand.
I'm hearing quite a lot anecdotally that business travelers are taking fewer but longer travels. Is that something you're seeing with your customers?
So the business traveler is staying longer and coming less amounts. So the repeat business traveler, especially in the service residence or what we call hotel residence category, is coming less frequently, but staying more. Even we are doing it. And so instead of once a month for 11 days, they're coming once a quarter and they're staying maybe a full 2 week stint.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, MJ. I'm noticing in the comments in the chat here that there's a lot of people after your presentation, Ryan. So if it's okay with you, what we'll do is we can host it on our service department news website. And when we send an email to everybody after the session with a link to the recording, we'll also put a link to your presentation, if that works.
Of course. Yeah, that works great. Excellent.
Thank you. Bill, the luxury branded residences and service departments in Asia, in Australasia, could you give us an idea of what you think the split is there between business use and leisure use, or again, are these definitions useless now as it's blurring so much?
I think it's a pretty gray market. I think, the hotel residences market is quite big in across Asia. Certainly you have branded residences, you have villas, hotel villas, components as well in the leisure market. So it's quite a big catchment. So I think, again, to try to pin it just into service departments, this is, again, luxury accommodation, but it covers a wide spectrum. I think certainly from the hotel villa standpoint, we've seen that embrace. That was kind of, people coming back in, if you go to the Maldives or something at Cheval Blanc, and, they continually were some of the highest rated business worldwide, certainly coming out of COVID as well. So we've seen that take up as well. So I think in terms of that, it's a very broad catchment. Talking hotel residences, talking service departments, and talking alternative accommodations as well. But there's a lot of product out there. And I think something that we saw, going back to 2018, 2019 was a younger luxury demographic. And that trend had been going on for a few years, but coming through COVID, we're seeing multi-generational travel. We're seeing, again, as we talk about leisure, a horrible word, but something we all want to talk about. So we are seeing longer stays. And for corporates, we're seeing a lot more off-site. So we're seeing, again, corporate executives come around and also use this type of accommodation for team building, for other exercises as well. So it's filling a space that normally was the hotel space as well. So we're seeing small groups of people come into alternative accommodation and have team building exercise or off-sites, or also doing work from this type of accommodation. So it's becoming very competitive with MICE facilities as well. It's an interesting space, but certainly, again, average length of stay, same thing we've been seeing, getting a lot longer. And just the sheer cost of travel, I think people are staying out there. It's like up in the air, just keep on staying out there for a while. People are traveling, but they're staying a lot longer. That's really a defining thing, defining our marketplace.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Bill. MJ, bless you. I'm sorry to come back to you where you're obviously struggling a little bit, but I do have a question for you. How are you reaching these very top-end luxury customers? What are the distribution channels that are working? I mean, and are these people even booking themselves, or is somebody booking on their behalf? How do you kind of get lodged in the consciousness of people who could stay anywhere, with money, no object? How do you get into them, and why do they come to you?
I'm not going to be telling anybody they haven't already heard anything new on this one, but COVID pushed expanding your digital footprint, your marketing and your IT departments and HR in a bit. But I would say mainly, I think people came out of COVID saying we need more robust marketing. We expanded our marketing team. We are I can't give you the exact statistic, but I think it's over direct bookings. The bottom line is we're driving content, relevant content through direct bookings. We are getting so many more people booking direct. We're an independent brand, so that's kind of unheard of, but the way people use social media is more savvy now. So again, they're willing to do it. The demographic for that is younger. We are still hardwired into our virtuoso agents. They now book service residences, service apartments a lot more confidently because the industry they feel is more competent and in a real category now. Star wasn't reporting on our category how many years ago? So I would say, you know, it's the channels that are working for us are spending more money on SEO, making it relevant, making sure the internal team is participating in that. It's not just marketing pushing, it's the staff on site pulling, right? Involving them in all of that. Our OTAs, a big part of what we do, because when we start up, if we take on, I'll give a live example, when we bought the Conrad in Miami, that's Hilton's that is to Hilton what Ritz is to Marriott, right? So we bought that building and overnight we went from 72% booked to 19 because they had all these Hilton honors, reservations in the systems. Well, thank God we had chosen to expand our digital footprint and fund marketing. What we did in less than 30 days in the name of recovery was opened up the floodgates on the OTAs, opened up we had the digital, like the whisper campaigns happening and push them out there. That would never have happened. That would have taken 6 to 9 months of push and pull between the human sales force and the digital footprint. Thank God. So there are, I would say the channels that are working for us are just having better use of SEO, SEA, and doing really good influencer campaigns that are relevant to the luxury market set. Not, I mean, my campaigns that are going to resound to that luxury buyer. So if it's if sales is hearing from their clients something, marketing now actions on it quickly. So those are the things that I think. So it's not just we're a luxury brand, it's taking this content and pushing it out to the right end users. It's brilliant what we've been able to do. Before it would take, I said, 6 to 9 months to get page 1 ranking, and that's all you were dependent on. But now you have this 5-dimensional approach to digital marketing because people know how to use social media and which social media outlet is going to work for us. Because we're luxury, Instagram's pretty relevant for us, Twitter, TikTok, maybe not so much, depending on which luxury traveler we're targeting. We have done some successful campaigns there for other luxury sets.
This whole influence thing is fascinating. I mean, I know that my daughter books travel based on things that she's seen on Instagram and so on. I haven't yet seen a grumpy middle-aged male influencer who would kind of have similar taste to me. So the jury's out on that one. MJ, just staying with you for a second. So, but people who are spending 4 figures a night on their accommodation are booking through OTAs, though, that even at that rarefied level of the market.
Okay, individuals are, most of our high-end luxury traveler is not on an OTA, but I would say, and I have to get you the statistic, but the luxury traveler who likes the add-ons where you can click add this, and they're self-sufficient enough and savvy enough, we've had an uptick in that versus, we're running a special on Expedia and all VIP users get X% off, That's not who we're chasing. This would be a different conversation in the 3-star category. I would say in the pure hotel category, we're still getting those bargain chasers, but they still know that we are a 4-star offering on the hotel side, going toward 5-star. Does that kind of help?
Yeah. Thanks, MJ. Bill, let's talk a little bit about the physical product. How is it evolving and changing, and what do people expect now? You mentioned earlier that there was a trend for units to get smaller, but that's reversed and now they're getting bigger again. Is there anything else that you would pinpoint that in the way the physical product is evolving?
I think certainly people like the exclusive side of the accommodation. So I think we've seen a row of people, gravitating towards the best of the units. Traditionally, in any of these type of product, the top end suite for this type of product was the lowest yielding, and we're kind of seeing a reversal of that right now, where people actually want to buy the biggest units. I think it's interesting with going backwards. Just to go back to MJ's point about about rewards versus recognition, and one thing we've seen is rewards are going to be the Hilton Honors or something else that's not that relevant anymore, because people who are booking this type of accommodation were calling the hotels and arranging what they wanted special and this type of communication. So I think the human element, it's been a lot about people, not products. I think it's we can look at size, we can look at other facilities, but it's been about like dealing with the customers not only when they're there, but when they're expecting to come. And there's been a lot more influence and discussions with customers in advance and what can be arranged for them. Private events as well, family reunions, certainly for a holiday, what things special could be done. So I think that's been a big change as well. And we've seen a flip back in terms of the F&B facilities, certainly in terms of private dining, in terms of personal chefs. And these type of accommodations, we see a lot of hotels where they're offering this in the service residences or in the hotel residence as well, bringing in a chef and having parties for people, even people from the local community, oftentimes in staycations. And again, a terrible word, but where people say, bingo, I'll get a chef, but I don't want to have them in my house as well. I'm going to rent a top line hotel residence or a service apartment, get a personal chef, and hold these type of events in these accommodation units. So that's been certainly an interesting trend.
So it sounds like people's pandemic-induced reluctance to interact with staff and fellow travelers, that's well and truly over by the sound of what you're saying, Bill.
I think it's certainly, again, I think people still like to be, in terms of, those personal relationships. It's interesting. I go back to hotel loyalty. I traveled, I think in 2019, 260 days. I think for 2 years, I never heard from any hotel I'd ever stayed in before. I don't know what the hell the GMs were doing during the pandemic, but they certainly weren't marketing the hotels. But coming out of this, I think, again, I think, people are looking and they are choosing the top tier products as well. And they're taking longer stays. They're looking for bigger units. Certainly work from home. There's a lot more people looking for other services which relate to business as well, in terms of meeting spaces, in terms of flexible spaces. We get a lot of requests from the hotel residences in terms of massage services, in terms of in-room gyms as well. So I think people like the flexibility in this type of accommodation, these type of units, which aren't just cookie cutter.
I guess one of the main advantages is you can incorporate a working zone in an apartment, for people who are traveling for work. Are you seeing dedicated workspace in the developments themselves, like a co-working area? Is that kind of thing popular?
At the luxury level, at the luxury level, not as much. We're seeing people who just want big ass space. Because they're not going to be working necessarily from a desk, but certainly they do want areas where they can work from. They're just choosing larger accommodation because they're digging in for longer periods of time. So I think that certainly is a defined way. And it's not all about people self-catering as well. I think there's still, people understand how to get Food Panda or food, coming from the outside. They're also eating in restaurants, again, in hotels, which is interesting. So we're seeing, the spend at a relatively high level, in luxury accommodations. That's interesting to see them back in hotel restaurants, because 2018, 2019, the trend was, they were flocking out of there. So again, that for hotels, it's been a good thing at the luxury level, for service residents as well, if there's restaurants, because you're seeing a lot more larger average spend, certainly for other services. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. MJ, AKA has been opening new hotel residences fairly regularly for 20 years or so now. How are you seeing the physical product evolve? What is the latest iteration of an AKA hotel residence look like now compared with one of the early ones?
It's funny you talk about hotel residences, we're trying to marry both the hotels and the hotel residences in certain campaigns. And the thing that has shifted is programming. What's available on campus for these luxury stays to feel comfortable and feel this sense of community, but still have the privacy they need. And what has changed is, again, I call it programming, but experiential stays. I hate to say something that everybody's been saying, but you can't just say it. You have to do it. You know, our Mr. Corman, Larry's description of the brand is we're delivering the world's first livable hotels. So although we have a hotel in Miami, we've got a myriad of programming and things you can do. There's a spa on site. There is a private workspace room if you want a hotel room that has, you know, a separate nook for working. The serviced or the hotel residence piece on the luxury side, there's two schools of thought. Our true high net worth, well-heeled executive wants, as Bill put it, big ass space. But I can tell you that our millennial high net worth travel wants efficient space and best use of space and, you know, crisp, clean lines, and they're good with minimalist design. We are partnering with, one of the things we're trying to do on experiential stays is partnering with really cool designers. We just opened Hotel Nomad with Pierre Lassoni, and Larry Corman's the visionary I don't know, voice for that. And he's the driving force for that. I'm sorry. And the other thing we're doing is the chefs. We have the Gypsy Chef that is going to be opening up in our Miami property. He took the entire 25th floor that was renovated in 2019. And it was a typical, not typical, it was a hotel restaurant. Wait do you see when this thing opens. This Gypsy Chef, David Myers, is second to none. I mean, he's been all over, mainly inspired by his travels. And I can't wait for that to open. But these folks that are booking are interested. So again, they're adding on to that space. What makes it different? You have to be able to appeal West Palm. We are appealing to a different age, high net worth traveler. So we've got both sets. We've got the well-heeled executive who is booking the larger one bedrooms. And then we have a bunch of studios there that are small. Our millennials are happy with that. So, you know, it depends on who you're appealing to. We're trying to appeal to both. And we're trying to have options for both and be respectful of that, to the point where West Palm was delivered to us as a white box. And Mr. Corman was like, well, we have to get these studios and make them efficient for our millennium traveler. Here we are, you know, somebody like me who wants to go in and operate and generate revenue. And he's tearing apart the studios. But it totally makes sense why. We have to appeal to the right client. And the mean age in West Palm Beach isn't 62 anymore.
Yeah. MJ, you're still looking to add more product. I know you're very much in expansion mode, and Larry's out there on the road a lot of the time looking at potential new properties. What are the challenges of doing that and growing your portfolio? I mean, we've seen how well the luxury segment is performing. That means it's pretty competitive, and there's a lot of people looking at the same assets, presumably. Is it difficult to acquire or develop new properties?
I will tell you that the biggest pain point, and this didn't used to be the case, is supply chain and getting the renovation or the build out done in a timely and efficient manner. It's costing more. So all of a sudden there's a barrier to entry. You have to reserve a whole lot more capital when you're looking at these assets and saying, what do we have to do in West Palm? It sounded easy on paper. When we went to execute, my goodness, everything's taking longer and costing more. If you want any metal finish, you know, I won't get into the gory details, but basically it's that. You've watched us try to grow our footprint in the UK. And I can tell you for 10 years, it's getting there first, you know, or having the right person to shake a hand and so on. We do want to expand, but for right now, we want to get the projects that we have in the queue open. And that, you know, we want to do another 10. And yeah, we have a whole team out there looking now. And I would say, though, the barriers are trying to get, we do have the money available, being able to close quickly, which we didn't always before. And the next piece is getting deliverable, being able to open the doors or do the renovation in an existing place where you're not disrupting. That luxury client doesn't want to hear a jackhammer at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I would just say getting the projects done, the physical capital improvements to turn it into what we want it to look and feel like for AKA. And in other markets, just getting the deal tied up quick enough. We were this close to doing something really spectacular in Nashville. And we had to put the brakes on it because there's too many projects happening for us right now. You can't just throw your logo on a building and open up.
Yeah. Bill, in the Asian market, the Australasian market, what's the transaction landscape looking like, and development? Is development cost going up the way the UK and the US?
Certainly we're seeing escalations in that, I think, but also we're seeing at the ultra luxury level, people like Amman, and if you go to Amman and Tokyo, in terms of they're doing branded residences because developers tend to be real estate developers, so they're mitigating their risk by doing hotel residences. These will be going back in with a brand on top of it, so this is what's getting deals done. So you're seeing these big type of projects, which are company. We worked on the New Mandarin Oriental coming at the Maldives. Again, they'll have a set of residences as well. So developers are mitigating risk and saying maybe we get an earlier payback by doing branded residences, doing a real estate component. We're also seeing city clubs come back, certainly with them on these type of people doing different facilities and taking their brands at the ultra luxury level and catering not only to their guests but catering to the local population as well. So I think certainly we're seeing that trend in some of the big CBD areas as well. But certainly for urban areas, land prices, again, for highest and best use, if you're doing a luxury service residence or something else, you got to have a real estate element or something else to underwrite the cost.
Mm-hmm. And what's the transaction landscape looking like? Are assets changing hands at the moment, or is everybody pausing for breath to see what happens?
Japan's the hottest ticket in the market. We're seeing more transactions, there than ever before. So certainly in terms of this, in terms of the relatively low cost of money in Japan, and perhaps an industry which hasn't had a lot of new products, and certainly with the private equity guys, they view Japan very favorably. So we're seeing a lot of other transactions. In other countries, it was really slow because again, it was a lack of debt, and aside from really the banks in a lot of Asian countries said hospitality, let's take, without the Chinese coming or without certain other parts of the world open, they were very reluctant, but we're starting to see that come good as well. So we're seeing debt come back in the markets, and that's going to certainly fuel transactions as well. But, there's still a huge gap between what the buyer expectations and seller expectations in Asia. It's not like Europe. It's not like the US. We still have illogical hotel owners and guys who want to own hotels because they want to own a hotel. So the criteria is not always the same.
I think there's still a few of those over here, maybe not as many as there used to be. MJ, you made an interesting point earlier about the millennium clients and the older clients want a slightly different physical product. I want to talk a bit about sustainability and ESG and that kind of stuff, and how important that is to the luxury guest. Is there a kind of demarcation there as well in age terms? Is this something very much that's being driven by the younger millennial customer?
100%. It's the younger customer. They're conscious about it. They're aware of it. And that's where I say using relevant content. We're not going to message that to the other demographic. We're going to talk about programming in a curated experience and a dining experience and on site and all the great things that you can do, spa day and so on. When we promote the spa and dining to our millennials, it's a whole different messaging. So yeah, the millennials are 100% aware of this. And I think I mentioned you had a panel, I think the last time I was in London. Anyone who is in attending this meeting knows that every RFP now has a substantial sustainability and what is your carbon footprint, and go into detail, not yes, no, click the link, so I'd say that that's really important. The city of West Palm has been probably one of our biggest eco kind of green footprint aware cities, to the point where you contribute to a transportation fund, and you encourage your staff, of course, to take public transportation, but even guests, you have a fund you must contribute to, and you can do it in the way of giving them rail passes. So we're trying to promote, and the millennials love it, not the others. A Miami, West Palm Beach, will provide a Bright Line pass for you. Those kinds of things. So it's absolutely relevant and required.
So the corporate travel buyers are getting more and more prescriptive in what they want from you in ESG terms. Are the younger clients who come directly to you as well asking about that sort of thing? And if so, what questions are they asking?
They want to know that we're green. Like, for example, instead of using disposable water bottles, have something that is reusable in the room. They prefer it. Make sure it's sanitized. Those are the kinds of things that they want to know. In the use of your health and beauty aids, are you using, say, bigger containers and refilling it rather than, is the container what's that? I can't even say it right. I forget what the word is, but is it free of whatever it is? Is it recycled plastic if you're using plastic? No, we don't want plastic. So they're asking mainly about how you execute, but we are messaging before they have to ask in most cases.
And how about the investors who are funding products, because they're obviously on the ESG journey too? Are they pretty prescriptive in terms of what building performance and so on?
Certainly for us, yeah. Things like refillable larger containers of health and beauty aids are a hot button for them in a good way. Building in the LEED certified fashion, there are things we do when we develop that we create awareness of, but we are not going to shift all of that, especially in this environment where supply chain, where everything is backed up and costing more. So we balance it.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Thanks, MJ. We've got some good questions coming in from the audience here. So for the last 5 minutes or so, I want to quickly rattle through some of these. I'm going to start with one which I'm going to ask all three of you in turn, and you can give me a fairly relative answer. Tia Ross has asked, thanks for getting in touch, Tia. What are thoughts on pricing? Excuse me. MJ, it's contagious.
Right.
What are the thoughts on pricing moving forward? Has luxury peaked? Ryan, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, if I can unmute myself. Well, I think, that's the kind of age-old question that we keep getting more and more. How much is rates going to keep rising? I think for the most part, for luxury rates, say for example, a London luxury hotel this week costs somewhere around £390, I think it is, which is about an 86% premium on an upper upscale hotel. And then if you look at what that was in 2019, it was about 73%. So even if those luxury rates continue to, I wouldn't say fall, but plateau, it's not so much of a cause for concern. And I think that as things are moving on, I think that will be the key thing as things look to continue to stabilize. To say to a hotelier, to be honest, to lower rates is probably going to be one that's a very difficult challenge. So to keep them as they are is probably the key message, especially in luxury moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Bill, in your part of the world, has luxury peaked, or do you think prices are going to continue to climb?
I think we're in an interesting next 2 years, and demand is still there in terms of the product. And I think it's not a matter of is it going to go up. I think it's a matter of can it be sustained? Are you going to see seasonality? Are you going to see any disruption to that? But I think the ability and the actual size of the luxury market and the demand right now it's very clear. It's not going to get any cheaper out there. Travel's not getting cheaper. Airlines aren't going to start pulling down their pants. It's not going to be cheaper to fly. It's going to be expensive, and those who can afford it, I think they will spend on luxury. So we still see that's probably the most stable accommodation market in terms of holding rate for the next, say, 12 to 24 months, certainly.
Yeah, MJ, would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. I would also say that in any crisis that we've been in, and we've been through many of them, the luxury set still finds a way to travel. They just do it quietly. The luxury set and the entertainment category and medical tourism kept us relevant and allowed our brand to stay alive. And in certain cases, I would call it thrive in the midst of chaos, and unheard of. I want to, every once in a while, I look back on what we did, the creative things we did during the pandemic to stay relevant. And I'm so proud of all of it. But we all got very scrappy, didn't we? So yeah, luxury for us, the way to raise those rates is that this thing I keep calling programming, adding on. The luxury set's always open to that. Just do it in a respectful and professional manner.
Yeah. Thanks, MJ. Okay, we've got time for one more question. This is from Richard Majewski. Thanks, Richard. Is a luxury service department considered as a closer product to hotel suites than it once was, if we consider some of the hotel services may be less in demand? Bill, do you want to kick off with that one?
I tell you, again, in terms of, again, there's a graying of the edges. There's so many hybrids out there as well between luxury service departments and, I think certainly in terms of luxury service departments, the complexes tend to be smaller versus a larger hotel with just luxury suites. I think there's a certain element of that to exclusivity, and size matters because these are typically smaller properties and they are more exclusive by that nature. So at that end of the market, so I don't think you're graying into just a suite as well. I think it's a totally different product. I don't think there's any danger of moving in that, but I think what we're moving into is, I think it's sometimes before it's, there's no desire for a standardized product anymore. A younger demographic, older demographic, different products, and thank God we're not having cookie cutter at this luxury service department level. We're having a lot of diversity.
Yeah. And MJ, you're presumably seeing a bit of a convergence between the hotels and the residences. There's not such a distinct line between them as there used to be.
It's not always the best player that wins. It's the better marketer. I would say that we tried to call ourselves hotel residences because from day one, we were providing enough hotel services to, we have a division that is corporate apartments, okay, or furnished residences. And I would just say categorically, and Bill covered it pretty well, there's a lot of product in there, but you're not going to be in the true luxury service department set if you're not having hotel services. You can eliminate them, but the true luxury set they're self-catering, but I would still say there are services that have to happen in my mind's eye. You have to be able to have some sort of dry cleaning service. We happen to do it same day, but you have to have something available that says you do have hotel-like services if you're in the luxury category of the service residence.
Yeah, they might be self-catering, but they're ordering half a dozen lobsters and someone to cook it for them in
what you said.
Yeah,
I'll have that.
Okay, thanks everybody. That was a great discussion. I just want to run through a few quick slides before we finish. And then when I've done those, we'll leave the countdown clock to run for a couple of minutes so people can take some notes from the chat because there's loads in there. As I said, we will host Ryan's great slides on a page on Service Department News, and we'll send you all the link to those. So our next Service Department News webinar will move on to a subject that we didn't even get around to today, and that will be looking at the various markets around the world, which ones are flourishing, which ones might be struggling, which ones are stalling. And that is happening on the 18th of May at 2 o'clock British Summer Time, and you can see the link to register for that in the chat.
I'm George Sell.
Oh, and now we're going to watch a quick video about the Service Department Awards, for which we announced the shortlist today, very excitingly. So if you go to servicedepartmentnews.com, you'll be able to see who's been shortlisted for those.
I'm George Sell, editor of Service Department News, and I'm delighted to announce that entries are now open for the Service Department Awards 2023. And here's why you should enter. The awards are now in their 8th consecutive year. They've become known as the Oscars of the industry. They are free to enter for as many categories as you like. We have an easy-to-use, state-of-the-art online awards platform. The awards are independently judged by a panel of experts. There are 20 award categories for both companies and individuals. You'll get to meet more than 300 industry professionals in the room. Great chance to network. Plus you can celebrate in style with a black tie, 3-course dinner, champagne reception and party. The awards are taking place in London on the 18th of May. See you there.
So you'll probably have gathered from my intro to that video that entries are no longer open, but everything else on there is true. It's a fantastic night. It'll be great to see you there. If you want to buy tickets, there's a few left. You can see the link in the chat. As I say, the shortlist is now up on servicedepartmentnews.com. If you're interested in working with us at SAN or any of our other media brands, please get in touch with one of my colleagues, Katie or Steph, whose details you can see there. And thanks for watching. Thanks to MJ, to Bill and to Ryan for a fascinating conversation. Thank you to you for giving up your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all on the next webinar. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.